All right, welcome to another episode of the Healthy Practice, Healthy Patients podcast, where we focus on the health of your practice so you can focus on the health of your patients. Here we keep you updated on current events in the marketplace. I'm Drew.
I'm Tanya.
Let's go. All right, good morning and happy Aloha Friday to you, Tanya.
Likewise, Drew. Happy Friday.
Another week has come and gone. Anything interesting since the last time we talked with you?
I mean, other than just lots of phone calls, lots of networking, talking to people, which I think is just maybe, a typical day for a lot of people. But being that I'm not currently employed right now, it's a different feel for sure, doing that in the mix of kids' activities in school.
Yeah,
So,
gotcha. I was out in with my father-in-law, with my in-laws last night,
mhm.
and the hope was to so they have an indoor basketball court, and then as we got outside, holy smokes, it was cold, and
Yeah.
it was just another reminder that we're not in Hawaii anymore.
It's been really cold lately, though,
Yeah,
like uncomfortably cold.
yeah, it'll snow and then it'll rain, and we need the precipitation, but it's definitely not 80 degrees outside.
Totally. I agree with you there.
Well, I saw a few updates in the market, and I'd be curious to get some of your insights on it.
Sure.
It was exactly a week ago, last week Friday, where I did the update on the layoffs in big tech and also in the finance sector. So there was the Goldman Sachs layoffs that had happened,
Right.
and it was interesting to me, kind of the optimism that the Goldman Sachs CEO had uh, in his I guess in his press briefings, uh, trying to address the layoffs and why that was, and the way that he categorized it, or the adjective that he used, he said that those layoffs were prudent, and those layoffs that he did, they were more senior positions, and I think that if I was a more senior employee that had been laid off, I saw that my past boss, past CEO called my layoff as a being prudent, I think that would have been a little insulting. you
Hmm.
Having been now I'm back in the job marketplace, and just seeing the trend, how things are going, with in this recession, in this technically it's a recession. What does that mean for me as an employee who's been recently laid off? He also did boast about their quarterly earnings, or their year over year earnings, and how they had grown. And so just seeing all these signals and signs in the market saying, Goldman Sachs is growing, and yet we are cutting, all these senior level positions. I,
Hmm.
I feel like that there's a lot of conflict or contradiction in that announcement. Were you able to see anything similar like that in your reports?
Yeah, I think we've just experienced so much growth, in our in this like the last, phase of this expansionary phase that we've been in the last, what, 10 plus years. And so, um, of course, it's not sustainable to continue at that rate forever, right?
Right.
And so, businesses, I think, are doing the best to show profit in whatever way possible, right? Which also might mean trying to figure out how to reduce expenses if their forecasts are if they're falling short of, their forecasts. Um, I think, looking at all of the info that we're seeing right now, unemployment is still really, low, relatively speaking.
Hmm.
Um, but you definitely are seeing kind of just this slowdown, this cooling off, everything that you would expect kind of in a cooling off phase. You're starting to kind of see some of that. Like, we can see it in the news, right? We see layoffs, we see the reduction of the CPI. I saw December experienced, a reduction in consumer spending. So you're seeing kind of like all these different shifts happening. Um, So at the same time, as a business owner, I think just trying to maintain like the business etiquette, the morale of company, and to maintain good standing is going to be important for companies. Not to say that on the individual employee level that these people don't matter for sure. I actually saw on my LinkedIn the other day, it was a Google employee. Google experienced all of those layoffs as well. She was in the DEI space for Google, but had been with Google for 20 years.
Right.
And it was it's crazy. It's a long time, and she was just, her post is actually it went viral. It's how I saw it. But she was talking about how, she absolutely loved the culture, loved the team, loved her colleagues, the camaraderie, but was, a little hurt with how the news was announced and how it all happened so abruptly after spending 20 years of her life there.
Right.
Right. And so I think it's definitely it's a hard balance to maintain. You're a business owner, you have to maintain the integrity of your business. But also, as it trickles down to these individual levels, like how you're executing and following through during these times matters. Culture matters, your management matters. And so I think it's, kind of it's expected, but also kind of just good reminders, I think, for sure.
Yeah. I guess one I think those are all great points, and thanks for bringing that up, Tanya. As you're talking, I had brought up in a previous episode a concern that what starts in the white collar sector, if it'll trickle, those layoffs, if they will convert over into the blue collar
Hmm.
in industries, right? And recently, so there's, I guess I could use Delta Airlines as an example. Their CEO Ed Bastian had announced that they were, experiencing record growth, and that their employees would see a percentage of the profits.
Hmm.
And so this was highly touted in the fall, last year fall. Well, the profits were to be released in February on Valentine's Day. And the employees were really looking forward to seeing a huge, that would be a huge relief if they saw a huge bonus check, from the profits that Delta Airlines was experiencing. Well, the announcement came out earlier this month that the bonus on Valentine's Day would actually be almost a third of what people were expecting, at least half.
Oh.
And so the relief that the employees were seeking was not to come. And there's
Hmm.
a lot of frustration with that. But I guess from an employee standpoint, it's really difficult to understand or to take into context what has happened or transpired since perhaps that announcement in the fall to right now.
Yeah.
Right, we're now in the recession, and the expense of running a business has increased and perhaps higher than what they could have predicted, and that might be affecting the profit share that these employees were expecting.
Hmm. Yeah, sorry, Drew, just kind of hopping in. It's interesting. I was reading an article just on how, the December info showed that reduction in consumer spending, right? So kind of with what you're talking about, as these expectations are set and these expectations are not met, like you said, what is going on now, um, to either change or alter, but still meet somewhat of that expectation. And how is that affecting things? Um, what is the trickle down effect of these decisions? Kind of coincides with like what we're seeing. You see um, the reduction in spending. So reading there's a reduction in spending on goods, but not necessarily services. So the assumption then can be made that maybe hopefully people are saving more, pulling back a little bit, right?
Well,
Um,
I did see
you would hope.
I did see a report from a macro level that as a country, our savings has actually decreased.
Hmm.
Um, you know, 20, at least 20%. I
Hmm.
can't remember the exact numbers, but I thought it was somewhere around $1.2 trillion dollars, and now it's down in the 800,000
Hmm.
or 800 billion dollars realm. So that's a significant drop.
Totally. And so, then it brings to light, other factors like what we see, the inflation, right? The cost of goods going up, wages not necessarily keeping up. No longer are you able to take your paycheck that you took, maybe 2 years ago and buy the same amount of groceries, of gas, of items, things that you need, right?
Right.
And so, that is the primary goal, though, of kind of fiscal policy, to hopefully slow down the consumer purchasing by increasing prices of goods, um, by the different things that we're seeing, interest rates, right? We're seeing the federal the prime rate increase, which is affecting mortgage interest rates, which then translates to, people buying homes. Are they going to be able to afford it? Are they going to slow down? Are they going to look at renting? So for sure, lots going on, like you said, on the macro level.
Mhm.
Um, it, and so, kind of thinking of this from maybe a dental practice on the business management side of things. I know you touched on this, when you talked about all of the layoffs that we were seeing in the tech space. Um, do you see maybe similar parallels to maybe COVID and dental and kind of the business, metrics that dental practices experienced during COVID?
Right. So, thinking of I guess in my mind, there are six different ways that you can increase the value or the lifetime value, the LTV of each patient. One of those ways, I guess we brought it up when you went in for your emergency visit. Um, the idea of being able to cross sell your patients. So they were able to
Okay.
sell and give you a toothbrush, right? And they take a certain percentage of their cross selling that toothbrush, even though they didn't manufacture it. They do see a benefit from doing that. Perhaps maybe those type of opportunities might not be there in the future.
Hmm.
Being able to upsell a patient in the quality of care, perhaps we might not be able to enjoy that as much either,
Much.
right? Um, depending on what type of acceptance rates of the treatments that are given by the dentist. Uh, so, and then also the frequency. We've talked about the frequency,
Hmm.
patients coming in for their 6 month
Right.
wellness check, right? Perhaps they'll fall off the schedule. They won't come in as frequently. Perhaps it will take an acute um, episode where they'll be forced to come in from a toothache, right?
Hmm.
So those are the type of behaviors that perhaps you could see in a dental practice, and if you're aware of those things, perhaps you can position yourself a little differently, right? Um, it takes a lot of money to purchase those toothbrushes, right? And if you know that you're not going to be selling as many toothbrushes to cross sell your patients, perhaps you won't invest that much into that, right? Just little examples like that
Hmm.
that a dentist could do to
That's
reduce
great insight.
to reduce their expenses. Um, I guess I brought up from a macros level that we've seen savings rates go down, but we've also seen an increase in credit card spending.
Hmm.
And so for me, that's a signal that from a consumer standpoint that I'm using all of my paycheck, right? So there's too much
Not
money
much left.
right at the end of the paycheck. And so I'm using all of my paycheck, and then I'm also using the money that I can borrow and putting it onto a credit card. And I think your observation is right. We're seeing a reduction in consumer spending on goods, but for services, we might be seeing an increase.
Hmm.
A service, I use the example of Delta Airlines. The airline industry, they're very optimistic for this upcoming year. They're seeing increased ticket sales for
Hmm.
travel, but specifically, they're seeing increased travel for international flights. And
Hmm.
so these are, um, local U.S. citizens here who are going overseas and taking their money with them. But we've already seen a decrease in savings and an increase in credit card spending. Perhaps these type of purchases could be attributed to COVID burnout, and just wanting to get away. And
Right.
and so those are the type of projections that they're seeing in the airline industry. And from a dental perspective, you know, consumers are going to continue to spend, right? Just because the environment has changed doesn't mean that their behavior, their spending behaviors has changed,
Right.
right? And so yes, things are more expensive, but the lifestyle now that the borders are open is allowing them to do the things that they've perhaps pent up for a couple of years, and now the airline industry is really profiting off of it.
That makes so much sense. Totally what I definitely kind of what I was seeing. You saw this boom of increased purchase in goods during the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, you saw it on the news when you go to the store, kind of that frenzy. And so you see that kind of slowing down and these services kicking up, like travel, dining, right? So definitely kind of um, just an interesting time to kind of see what people are doing. You see it in the news, you see layoffs, but like you said, doesn't necessarily mean that the money will stop flowing, um, because people have their spending behaviors, their spending habits, but of course things will look a little bit different. um, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's good insights.
There was I guess there was a quote from the American Express CEO. I don't have his name, but I thought it was really interesting what he was saying, and perhaps it will support what we've been saying. Is he said that we aren't seeing recessionary signals, and this is from American Express perspective, right? And it kind of matches what we said about the decrease in savings and the increase in credit card spending. Like, of course, from American Express, there more people are using American Express and using their miles, using the benefits, and capitalizing off of the brand.
Mm.
And at least that's what he was attributing it to. But if I were to use it from a dental standpoint, you as a dentist, business owner, what is the brand that you have? When an acute episode like emergent care arises for a random patient, will they think of your dental practice, as the preferred dental provider in that instance? And that would be an opportunity for you to, how you market yourself and how you avail yourself to your existing patients, to potential patients that your patients know, or people that are just in proximity to you.
Hmm.
Just think of different opportunities to really position yourself, and yeah, hopefully put yourself in the best position.
Definitely, I appreciate that, Drew. That's sound insight.
Yeah. Um, did we go over your article yet? Or
Yeah, that's kind of basically kind of just what we talked about,
okay,
right? Just kind of the trends we're seeing in spending. I'm always super interested just to see in what when you see what we see it all over the layoffs and everything. But I'm always interested to see kind of across the national scale just what consumers are doing. What does the data show? Which I think we did a good job at talking about. So
okay, sweet.
yeah,
I hate for it every week to be doom and gloom. I hope the optimism that these CEOs of American Express and Delta Airlines is something that we can carry forward, as well as those who are working outside of those industries. That we could there are opportunities out there, and if
definitely
the more information that we have, the better the inspiration that we can carry with us as we strategize to move forward.
better preparation. Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that was a good episode for this week.
Yeah,
Really appreciate getting together with you, Tanya, and I really
likewise.
I really hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll catch you
Thank
next.
you.